empowering kind of different types of entrepreneurs, right? That are targeting whether it's women entrepreneurs, whether it's kind of like the Muslim entrepreneurs. I think there's always different ways to target the market. And I think that's probably the next phase of evolution where we can target different parts of the niche market to become to make it a bigger pie for everyone. I believe that I think between the Indonesian and I think Malaysian startup ecosystem, I think there's still a lot to learn. And I think we believe that we can be the bridge to that journey.
Visi Talks kembali hadir bersama saya Yeni Yusra dan kali ini kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan RHL Ventures. Ada Hamzah Raja as a managing partner of RHL Ventures. Hi Hamzah, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm very good, thank you. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. So you're in KL right now?
Yes. I just got back from Jakarta yesterday.
Oh, okay. So before we dive into conversation, maybe you can share with us what is RHL Ventures?
RHL Ventures is a venture capital fund operating out of Malaysia.
Okay.
We invest all across Southeast Asia, and we're supported by some of the key governments, both in Southeast Asia and also in North Asia.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the category, is there any specific startup category that you are aiming for, or you agnostic for now?
As mentioned, we focus on the Southeast Asian technology space. We've invested in a variety of companies ranging from healthcare, fintech, education, and consumer-related technologies. The current focus of our fund is sector agnostic, but at the same time, there's a few thematic factors that we are looking at the moment, including the agri-tech and food tech scene. The reason we believe is that food security is a regional issue and not, let's say, a country-specific issue. And learnings between whether it's in terms of aquaculture, whether it's in terms of the shrimp industry, whether it's in terms of supply chain. I think I find that there's similar problems that exist, whether it's in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Vietnam. Hence why I believe agriculture or food tech approach is something that is transferable across the whole and scalable across the whole region.
So talk to me about the difference between Indonesian and Malaysian startup. Is there any similarities or in terms of the services and the technology, they tend to cater different market or different technology? What is your take on that?
Okay, obviously, I think everyone speaks to kind of Indonesia having a huge population, right? But I think if you compare that to Malaysia, I think in terms of GDP per capita, we are actually number 3 in Southeast Asia. And I think it's about 4 or 5 times, depending on which number you take, compared to the average consumer in Indonesia. So at the same time, I think there's also less competition in Malaysia if I compare to Indonesia. So usually, for example, if I take one sector, let's say quick commerce, there's in Indonesia, there's Astro, Drop Easy, there's so many Banana, there's so many guys who are targeting the space. I think if you compare it to Malaysia, I think there's only probably 1 or 2 guys that are targeting that space. Yes, it is a byproduct of the market, but at the same time, what that means is that I think the companies that want to expand here, there's probably relative competition, and there's also a higher ticket size that you can target vis-a-vis the consumers, let's say, in Indonesia. But I think the good part is there's big similarities in terms of culture. Obviously, we speak a similar language. And I think in terms of spending time with the founders, I think there's a lot of understanding on trust and on relationship in both countries. And so I think in the past, the cross-border relationships have not been maximized. I think there's only a few companies have done so well. For example, Kasem, that's kind of built a strong base in Indonesia. I think in Malaysia, you see some of the likes of Zendit who are building a base. But at the same time, I think moving forward, there's room for a lot more collaboration between Malaysia and Indonesia.
Okay, so you've been one of the Indonesian portfolio that you already have right now is 3, right? So far, Happy Fresh, Kita Beli, and also Alami. Talk to me about the reason why you interested with them. Is there any specific plan for you to implement it into their business, or is it something that you are looking for RHL Ventures?
So I think for us, when we look at a company, we don't look at the business model itself. We look at the founders, but at the same time, we look at the kind of the value creation that we can impact towards the company. So I take your Alami, for example, right? met Dima through introduction from Bandu, and then he basically asked us to look at the business. At that time, he was seed. I think Dima just came out of INSEAD, and he wanted to build a kind of Sharia P2P lender slash,
Yes.
obviously now digital bank, right? But at that time, it was probably just a P2P lender. But at the same time, I think the regulations were just starting to form. And I think Malaysia launched their P2P market slightly earlier than that. So there were kind of like a longer term plan to come into Malaysia, given that there's a huge Muslim population as well. So when they come into the market, it's obviously I was an advisor for them for a while, and I think the idea was always kind of come with a bang, come in with like kind of the networks, the relationships with either the central bank, Securities Commission, all set, and kind of coming quickly. Obviously, this is a gestation period, so it takes time. And any company, even we talk to a seed and we invest in, we don't expect them to come in immediately. But I think we build that pathway, build that, let's say, what are the relationships, who do you need to know, what companies you need to look at, who you want to partner to move the business forward. So that's, I think, for Alami. I think the other companies like Kita Beli, as obviously they're still Indonesia focused, but I think speaking to some of the players over here, for example, Malaysia has one of the highest kind of direct selling industry, one of the biggest direct selling industries in the region, led by companies like Causeway, which is a bit similar to what you see in Amway in the US, right? So I think that culture of kind of social selling is there. Obviously, slightly different mechanics, or slightly different products from what you see in Indonesia. But I think there's a lot of learnings that we can learn from both sides, and obviously build that cross-border path.
Okay, so you've been doing this for how long now, Hamzah?
We've actually we first incorporated the business in 2016. We launched our first fund in 2018. So I think it's 4 years since our first fund. And now obviously we've grown the team, we've grown our portfolio, we've grown our investor base, and it's an exciting journey.
Okay, so interesting. Maybe you can spot what is the biggest mistake that founder tend to do. We talk about not only Malaysian founder but also Indonesian founder. Do you find the same mistake that they made over and over again when it comes to fundraising?
I think in terms of, if you focus on fundraising, right?
Right.
I think the overarching reasons that companies fail, probably it's similar. I mean, factors like approaching investors too early, being unreasonable with a timeline, obviously governance. So I think these are kind of broad overarching issues that I think all start out
face. I cut it. How early is too early from your opinion?
I think we generally do anything from kind of like kind of post-seed to kind of like pre-series A, Series B. So I probably will not be able to kind of go as early, let's say, someone like East, where they can just come in a ticket for ideation. But I think anything post that, when they're starting to revenue generate is where we'll probably come in. So I think we're quite flexible into the stages. We can do earlier, we can do a bit later. But the important part is we want to partner our companies and our portfolio companies and build synergies with them.
So you're more flexible, right? Not only focusing on the early stage, but also later stage if the opportunity is okay.
Correct. Because I realize for them to kind of build more, there's more business development, more strategic networks, and also to come into Malaysia, obviously a later stage company, let's say Series A, Series B makes more sense because they have kind of more capital to tackle different markets.
Okay, so in 2022, what kind of business or potential that you are starting to see in this year and the next 2 or 3 years?
Yep. Also, we have seen like many tech companies pop up. I will probably think that the number of tech companies popping up in the private markets especially have grown exponentially. Obviously, we've kind of benefited from the low rate environment and also the kind of the bigger ecosystem, right? So like the likes of Goto IPOing and the people who come out of that IPO to come on and start their own companies, create the sort of an entrepreneur ecosystem. Some of the teams that I believe will power our next 5 years include food safety, security, and sustainability. I believe that team is it's still very nascent in Southeast Asia. Obviously, there are companies who are target for a later stage in their life cycle, but I think we're only scratching the surface. Number 2 is, I think, empowering kind of different types of entrepreneurs, right? Targeting whether it's women entrepreneurs, whether it's kind of like the Muslim Muslim entrepreneurs. I think there's always different ways
yeah.
to target the market. And I think that's probably the next phase of evolution where we can target different parts of the niche market to become, to make it a bigger pie for everyone. I believe that I think between the Indonesian and I think Malaysian startup ecosystem, I think there's still a lot to learn. And I think
Yeah.
we believe that we can be the bridge to that journey.
So, talk to me about tackling climate change. Is there any chance that RHL Ventures will chime in into that?
We've looked at some of the teams that are along that. I wouldn't say specifically tackle that, but we look at companies in the solar space, for example, how to do that in a smarter way. We've looked at companies to do kind of like waste to energy or energy management, and I think there's something different as well. So we honestly have not invested in any of these teams, but I think
Not yet,
it's something
right?
that not yet. So we're constantly on the lookout. And if you look into kind of Malaysia, there are large companies who target waste to energy. There's large companies who target solar. So I think it's just a start of things to come in the venture space.
So, any plan to fund more Indonesian startups in the next month, probably, or you tend to act like not only focus in Indonesia but also regional?
I think the main three markets that we're focused moving forward is Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. I think those three. We've invested quite heavily in Malaysia and Singapore of our hibiscus fund. I think for us, Indonesia is still underinvested, and we are looking to do a lot more there. In terms of portfolio allocation, we have allocated about a quarter of portfolio to the market because we believe that we can effectively build that bridge to the startup ecosystem over here. And into Indonesia. I think what we've looked at, I think I spent the last kind of 1 week over there in Indonesia. I mean, we've looked at companies across all sectors, and I think there's a lot of guys who are doing well. And I think as we grow and we mature the ecosystem, I think there are a lot more guys who will kind of understand how to build that bridge and the effectiveness of kind of a bigger market.
Okay, so maybe you can share how do you, I mean, if the startup funder for Indonesia want to approach you guys, probably sending cold email, is there any email, LinkedIn, or a website that they can reach?
Yeah, feel free. I mean, you can contact me directly. At the same time, our website, RHL.Ventures, and there's our info at RHL.Ventures. You can always reach out anytime. Obviously, we have our network of co-investors in Indonesia as well. I think most of the VCs are good friends. Whether it's AC, Go, Alpha, all these are our friends. So happy to kind of like also co-invest with them. I think we are really on the lookout for good entrepreneurs who are willing and wanting to make that bridge a connection to create that regional story.
Okay. So Hamzah, last question. Are you considering RHL is a very active VC in terms of funding, or you have certain of timeline or planning for each year to fund each startups?
I would say we would probably invest in about one startup a month. I think that's the cadence that we are targeting. Obviously, it depends who you're talking to. That's probably like on the low side for certain people. That's probably on the high side for certain people, right? But I think given the stage you're targeting, Series A and B, that's where probably the cadence that you want to follow. The reason being that we have a kind of investment period of about two years, so we need to deploy our capital ASAP.
Okay, thank you so much, Hamzah, for your time. Hopefully, Indonesian startup funders can reach you guys, right?
Please,
and more
anytime.
Funder can get a chance to get to know you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll catch you next time.
Yeah, I'll see you soon when you're back in Jakarta. Okay, hopefully.
Take care.
Bye, Hamzah. Thank you so much.